Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
This is a catastrophe.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
That's what I wished for when I blew out my candle.
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
The floor is yours.
Hour 2, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Officially working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Lots to do in hour number 2. I haven't gone into my thoughts on LSU's linebackers. We'll get into that coming up. And then I've got some more thoughts from practice earlier this morning at 2:30. Speaking of practice this morning, Saints back at it out there at the facility in full pads today. Ross Jackson locked on Saints and LouisianaSports.net. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Wednesday. Ross, how we doing?
Hey, man, doing great. Glad to be here with you.
I'm glad you're here with me. Let's talk about the black and gold. Back in the pads today, physicality picked up a little bit over the course of the last week.
Yeah, big time. And I would say certainly today, I think anytime that you start off practices, and I think you've seen this before, Hunt, when you start off practices with one-on-ones, that's always going to take up a little bit of physicality, especially when it gets to the team drills.
Let's talk about the linemen, and that's the most fun group to talk about when they actually put the pads on. Gotten a good look at Kelvin Banks with some one-on-ones?
Yeah, Kelvin Banks has been a player that's been a lot of fun to watch. He's really fast. He's really kind of fast and physical, but I think the fastness or the speed of his movement ability is one thing, but the speed of his sort of like, I don't know, just kind of the way that he processes and understands what's going on in front of him, and the new system and the run scheme, all those pieces. Like, it's just really impressive kind of watching this young guy go. He's got a lot of looks about him that make him look more veteran than rookie, and I think that's probably really promising for this team that went ahead and invested a top 10 selection of.
Trevor Penning moving inside to guard. I know that Kellen Moore talked about him yesterday, but what have you seen from him in this transition period?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of physicality, right? Like, that's always been his game, and certainly playing in the trenches, down in the middle, and certainly in the interior is one of those things that really, really helps him big time. Because he gets to be a little bit more physical. He gets to be a little bit more aggressive. He gets to be a little bit more kind of dominant, especially in the run game, which is where he's always been at his strongest. He said he's got some things that he needs to continue to work on, hand placement, particularly getting his hands up. And then, of course, also, footwork and everything, because your footwork's a lot different on the inside as an offensive lineman than at tackle. And so I think that once he gets those in, we'll start to see some more of, the kind of the progress as it goes through. But he's really got the opportunity to work on that during these padded practices. So 2 down and with a few more to go, I think you'll continue to see the progress for him. But he's certainly feeling a lot more confident than I think that we're typically used to seeing him feel at this point in each of the training camps that he's been a part of.
Any sense from Taliese Fuaga that he's been demoted in a way, or you feel like he's more comfortable?
No, he's pretty comfortable. I mean, he's back where it was that he played, collegiate football, and he really loves being over on the right side and playing next to Cesar Ruiz. The two of them apparently joked around last year quite a bit about, man, how cool would it be if we got to kind of play next to each other, and then that's exactly what happened here in 2025. So it really opens up a little bit more of an opportunity for them. They have a lot of fun out on the field. When they get big run games, you can see them kind of, our run plays, you can see them kind of laughing at the defensive linemen and stuff like that. They're kind of clowning each other and others out on the field all throughout. So he's having a great time.
Now let's talk about the defensive side. Now that you've seen some one-on-ones, anybody stand out from a defensive line perspective?
Yeah, from that defensive line perspective, I think, Devon Godshaw is just kind of immovable. You know that very well. Yeah. That guy is massive, and he's somebody that is just, really, really physical, not just from sort of what you would expect with his hand usage and everything like that, but the way that he sits and anchors, it's just so tough to move him. And I think that's something that you're really looking forward to if you want to see this New Orleans Saints defensive kind of run defense improve going into 2025, finishing 31st in the NFL last year. Having somebody like that that's not going to get pushed off the line of scrimmage, that's going to be able to kind of reduce those yards before contact. That's a major addition for New Orleans. It's no wonder why they, instead of going to free agency, they went and traded for somebody, and they immediately identified Devon Godshaw as a guy they wanted to go after. That, both Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore have experience going up against with the Chargers. And not having much success running his way, they decided that that's what they wanted in their room, and so they went out and got him. And I think Brian Brzee, the other one, his movement ability is just so surprising still at his size And then, of course, guys like Chase Young and Carl Granderson with their athleticism continue to stand out as well.
Let's go back to Brazee. What did you see from him against the run last year? We know the pass rush statistically was very, very good. What about the run?
Yeah, I think it's probably the kind of weaker part of his game. It always has been, even going back to his Clemson days and things like that. I think one of the things that was always kind of challenging for him is in that 4-3 defense, when he's playing sort of that 3-tech role lined up between the guard and tackle, he's having to either dart towards the inside, kind of flash across the guard to try to penetrate, get to that A-gap between the centering guard. And those are big bodies that you're kind of putting yourself, in the midst of. But you saw the success of the pass rush when he was able to work a little bit more in the B-gap, going outside of that, flashing over the guard's outside shoulder instead. So he just had a little bit more trouble working inside than working outside. But now the way that this defense is going to work out, with the edge rushers being so far to the outside, kind of playing outside the tight end, even when there's not a tight end there, those tackles are going to have to take wider sets. That's going to create space between the tackle and the guard. So that's going to give him the opportunity, as a player that's working off the edge, to kind of be able to be in space a little bit more, because he'll be playing sort of the 3-4 defensive end role as opposed to being all the way in the middle of that defense. So I think it's going to give him a little bit more, like the benefit for him is that he'll get to work a little bit more in space, one-on-one, instead of being sort of mixed into those double teams with the bigger bodies on the inside. I think that's going to help him kind of overcome some of the struggles that he had in the run game in his early NFL goings.
Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints podcast. Of course, got our coverage, LouisianaSports.net as well, giving us a little bit of time here on this Wednesday. We talked about Banks. I know it's early, but any of the other rookies caught your eye here or there with the play?
Yeah, I mean, look, Quincy Riley, I should highlight, the Louisville corner. He got his second interception of camp today, and both of the interceptions that he's gotten in camp have been in 7-on-7s, but they've also both been in the end zone. And this is just what Quincy Riley does. He had 15 interceptions coming into the NFL. He had that was the most interceptions of anybody at his position in this year's draft class. He had 54 passes defended as well. And so this is just somebody that has a lot of production at the ball, and that's something that this Saints team desperately needs over on defense. And so he's been providing that. I'll highlight Danny Stutzman, who got a shout out from tight end Jack Stoll today. The two were were kind of matched up a lot because there were a few nicks and bumps and bruises at the tight end position. So Jack Stoll, coming over from Philadelphia, got a lot of opportunity today. And he was working against Danny Stutzman quite a bit. And one of the things that he spoke about was sort of the vocal leadership that he brings. This is a guy that consistently gets mixed into the first team now, along with Pete Werner and Demario Davis. And his sideline-to-sideline ability, his athletic ability are just kind of off the charts. And then you add kind of the football processing that he does. I mean, it's no wonder why he was one of the top off-ball linebackers coming into the league. And the Saints pretty lucky to get him as late in the draft as they got him.
And then back to safety. Obviously, Tyron steps away right before training camp breaks. So what's the word back there opposite Jordan Reed?
Yeah, so it's been a lot of Julian Blackmon here lately. They signed Julian Blackmon really, I mean, not a few days ago, the day before camp. It was clear that they were working towards a contract the same day that the Tyrann Mathieu retirement was announced, and then that deal became official the next day, after the first day of training camp. And he was here the second day of training camp and has already climbed his way up here, camp day 7, into the starting lineup. He was effectively with the first team the entire day today. And I think that makes sense. When you lose a guy like Tyrann, you try to find veteran experience where you can get it. And so maybe that is a big part of why you see a guy like Julian Blackmon immediately kind of leap a Jonas Sanker, who's really talented, but, is a rookie. A Terrell Burgess, who's really talented, but hasn't had as much playing experience, even though he came in literally the same round and same year as Julian Blackmon to the NFL. But Blackman's got a lot of ball production in the NFL, 7 interceptions over the course of the last 2 seasons. And he's kind of been the guy that's next to Justin Reed here as of late. We'll see how that continues to rotate. Jordan Howden kind of started off there first. And so I'm sure that there will be changes there. But for right now, it's been a lot of Julian Blackmon with the first team.
We'll let you get going, get writing, all right? We listen to Locked On Saints and check you out on LouisianaSports.net. Ross, we appreciate a little bit of time.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks for having me on. You take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good. That is Ross Jackson down in New Orleans. A lot of interesting stuff there that we'll certainly dive into as the show moves forward. If that offensive line's got to be good, they just have to. And if they can find a way to be good, you can start to let Kellen Moore's offense find its way. If they can't block, you can't do anything. It'll be the same thing we talk about with LSU. LSU's offensive line just needs to be 7 out of 10. The Saints' offensive line probably needs to be 8, 9 out of 10. And if they can get there, then both those teams are going to achieve what they're looking to achieve, which for LSU, that's getting into the playoffs and being a championship-style contender. For the Saints, it's getting the offense implemented and getting a young quarterback quality reps where he's not running for his life. That's what you're looking for those two operations. So we'll see. Hopefully both of them work out. Thanks to Ross for all that. Again, you can find all this stuff for free at louisianasports.net or at Locked On Saints. When we come back, let's talk some linebackers. I thought there was a little bit of a wrinkle today. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Shows Renaissance Homes and Pools. Call my guy Joey Blanchard. I'll give you his number. Get your phone out. You're thinking, it's time for me to get that outdoor kitchen set up. It's time for me to get that pool. Because it's really hot in South Louisiana. And you just like to get off work and jump in the pool. It's a great feeling. Call Joey, 225-252-7745. Custom Dream Pools. You've always thought I'd love to have a pool in the backyard, but just never have the courage to just go do it. Well, go do it. Joey will customize it. And the best thing about working with Renaissance Homes and Pools, you will work with Joey start to finish. He's the owner. It's not just some employee who may or may not be happy in his current employment and might be looking elsewhere and might not be there when the job's complete. No, if you design a pool and build a pool with Renaissance Homes and Pools, you're going to work with Joey start to finish. He'll be there for the design. He'll be there when they dig the pool. He'll be there when they fill it. He'll be there when they complete it. You don't have to worry about that. And you'll always have the owner of the company in your back pocket when you move forward. It's Renaissance Homes and Pools. You can check them out online at builtbyrenaissance.com, builtbyrenaissance.com. All right, in-depth chart every day. Talk about a different position group. We got 3 more to go. Linebackers today, corners tomorrow, safeties on Friday, and that'll wrap that segment. And so I want to talk about the linebackers today because I wrote this morning before I went to practice, and I was a little surprised at who the starting linebackers were on the first day of practice and no pads in the 11-on-0 drill, which doesn't mean everything, but it certainly meant something as we were out there. You lose Greg Penn, who has been a 3-year starter, consummate team guy, wore 18 last year, was playing with broken ribs last year, didn't sit out the bowl game, was a guy that came out for interviews just about every single week. Like Mason Taylor and Greg Penn were out there almost every week. And he isn't the most talented player that's ever played at LSU, wasn't the most productive player that ever played at LSU, but was a solid piece to the middle of your defense really for 3 years. He started 4 games at LSU, had 274 tackles, 17.5 for loss, 5.5 sacks. And he moves on. Wasn't drafted, tried to continue his football playing career as an undrafted free agent, but you lose him to graduation, and then you lose Xavier Adkins, who transferred to Auburn after 1 year in the program. I know that's one that LSU fans would have liked to have back, but he moves on to Auburn. So what do you have back from last year's team at linebacker? You got Whit Weeks, who's preseason All-American. You got Harold Perkins, who has been an All-American and a 2-time All-SEC player. And then you got West Weeks, Whit's older brother, Devon Keys, who was kind of thrust into action last year. You lost Harold Perkins, and then West Weeks got hurt. So Devon Keys kind of had to play. And he did admirably. The biggest play he made was probably the tip ball pick 6 against Baylor, which was right place, right time. But he did catch the ball and outrun the Baylor offense to the goal line. But he made some plays. He started 4 games, and he's now got a little bit more seasoning than he probably would have had if you had stayed healthy last year. And then you've got Tylen Singleton back, who was a 4-star recruit out of Manny. Was a little bit undersized last year. I will tell you this. I was at practice today. He's not really undersized anymore. Tylen Singleton is a pretty put-together dude. I think he was working at the Star today a little bit, and that's backing up Harold Perkins. You may see a safety come down there if Perkins were to go out, but Singleton was kind of working there. He's a really good athlete, runs really well. So that's what you've got back. Whit Weeks, West Weeks, Harold Perkins, Devon Keys, Tylen Singleton. And then you bring in a host of freshmen, 5 of them. And I don't know if it was because you brought in 5 freshmen that you didn't go into the portal, or it's because you feel that good about the 5 guys you've got back that you didn't go to the portal. But there were only 2 of the position groups that LSU did not dip into the transfer portal for when you look at the starting 22 on offense and defense. You got Van Buren at quarterback. You got a host of wide receivers. You got a couple starting offensive linemen. You got a tight end. You got defensive tackles, 2 of them. You got 3 edge guys. You grabbed a couple of DBs who can do various things in Delane and Cooley. Certainly got Jakeem Jackson as well. Like, you got every position except linebacker and running back you added in the portal. And I'm not sure what that tells me about linebacker, but they've got numbers there. It's just really young with 5 true freshmen. You got Zach Weeks, who's the biggest of the Weeks, by the way. If you look at the LSU listed depth chart, he's 6'3", 230. Witt's 6'2", 225, and West is 6'2", 235. So if you look at just height and bulk, he's the biggest. Then you got Charles Ross, who was running with the 2s today. Charles Ross, listen to this. He came in the spring. He was the top rated of these 5 true freshman linebackers. 6'1", 225, and ran track in Texas. There's a video from Shea Dixon's Twitter from a couple of years ago that has Charles Ross running the 100 meters next to one of the fastest guys that LSU's ever signed in their program in Jelani Watkins, who ran the 6th fastest time in LSU history as a freshman this past track season. And Charles Ross is in that breath. He was apparently clocked in the 4.4s in the 40 as a high school senior. He was certainly in a Texas track meet, clocked at 10.36 in the 100 meters. He can fly, and he's 230 pounds. So that's a guy that LSU is very excited about, who is a true freshman in this group. You've also got Jaden Breaker, who's a solid out-of-state linebacker who's 220 pounds. You got Keelan Moses, who was at practice today and dropped a pick 6 that he undercut a route and looked like he was going to catch it and take it back the other way for a touchdown. He just dropped it. And you got CJ Jim Coyley, who's also 6'3", as well, 220 pounds. So 5 true freshman linebackers kind of led by Charles Ross. But if you went out to practice today, which I did, you saw Whit Weeks and West Weeks working as the first team in the inside with Perkins out at the star. And then you saw Charles Ross and Devon Keys working on the inside with Tylen Singleton at times out at the star, which makes sense in terms of the guys that you were going to see. That counts all 5 of the guys who were coming back, and it accounts for Charles Ross, who's the best of the true freshmen. And I think that is one of those depth chart things that I can look at and go, that's probably correct. Because Ross is the most talented freshman, and he was here in the spring. And then you got 5 returners. If you got 6 spots, 2 deep of 3 each, that makes the most sense. So that is the core that you're looking at. And so if you look at it closely, like Whit Weeks, if he's healthy, is going to make 120 tackles. He's going to be a first-team All-SEC player. He's going to be mentioned for All-American honors, and he's going to be an early draft pick. Like, he is a guy you don't have to worry about. It's interesting, and I looked at his Pro Football Focus grades, that Whit Weeks had 3 bad tackling games, like that were in red on Pro Football Focus that were bad. UCLA was one of them. Who cares? They were atrocious. LSU crushed them. But he was really bad tackling against Texas A&M. He was really bad tackling against Florida, according to Pro Football Focus. In fact, like bad. 32.7 grade against Texas A&M, 35.5 against Florida. And those 2 teams combined to run for 355 yards and 7 touchdowns on 5.5 yards per carry against LSU. Like, LSU needs Whit Weeks week in and week out to be excellent. They just do. They've got to have him. And I have confidence he'll be that guy. And whether it's West or Keys opposite him, you need production from that guy. West was hurt last year, so you don't really know. He hasn't played a ton at LSU. He's been mainly a special teams guy. And Devon Keys did start some games last year when West was hurt. So that's going to be a competition. I would imagine they'll both play. I think they'll both play at Clemson. I think Keys is probably the guy. But certainly there may be something to having two brothers in there in the interior that know what each other's doing and can read each other's minds. But that's kind of the guys that you're jostling for position for there in the middle. And then you got Perkins on the outside. And we are now 4 years into this discussion. What do you do with Harold Perkins? And we've had this 50, 60, 80, 90 times. And to me, you've got to get him involved and you've got to let him run. So to me, the only unacceptable answer is to put him in the middle of the field and have him catch guards and tackles for 4 quarters. Like, that is the only unacceptable scenario to me. I think he's okay covering a little bit. I think he certainly needs to be rushing the passer a lot. I got the numbers from Pro Football Focus. He, as a freshman, had a 90.9 pass rush grade on 163 snaps. 90.9. That is massively high. You almost never see any scores in the 90s. That's his season-long pass rush grade. 163 rushes. The next year, he had 162 rushes. One less, but right on par. The difference is he played a lot more snaps. Instead of dropping into coverage 130 times, which he did as a freshman, as a sophomore, he dropped into coverage 291 times. That's an increase of 161. He was just in coverage a lot. And we know that Florida State that year schemed him out of the box. They knew where he was going to line up. They knew he was going to be in coverage, and they put somebody out wide that he was going to have to go mark. And they took him out of the game. You can't let that happen. I've told you this before. This is where my ability to scheme and draw up X's and O's in football stops. I know that Harold Perkins was out of the box the whole game. I don't have the answer to how to get him back in. But that's Blake Baker's job. So I'm not going to give you the answer or tell you I have an easy answer because I don't. But that's what has to happen, or else you're neutering his skill set. Again, he is pretty good in coverage. He runs great. He's got good ball skills. And, man, if he can get an interception, you're talking about a guy that can motor the other way. But you've got to find a way for him to be disruptive in some space. And that means rushing the passer, chasing down running backs behind the line of scrimmage, those types of things. You've got to get the offensive lineman kind of away from him. It's a hard assignment because he's not great at shedding offensive linemen and you don't want him in coverage. So you want him just to have free runs on the quarterback and running back. Well, that's not going to happen. But you've got to find a way to scheme it up to get him free. And I think LSU will have a plan for that. And I think Harold Perkins will have a really good year. So I think LSU's running back group is very, very good. Linebacker group is very, very good. I think they've got to stay healthy, one, clearly, because you got a bunch of true freshmen standing waiting in the wings for backups. But if you stay healthy and Devon Keys takes a reasonable progression from year 1 to year 2, and West Weeks is the player he was at Virginia and early in his LSU career instead of the guy that was banged up last year. And if you can find a way to get Charles Ross involved, more power to you because that's a freakish talent. But I'm comfortable with where LSU is at linebacker. And part of what Blake Baker's job is this year is understanding that after this year is over, Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks, and West Weeks are gone. And these 5 guys that you brought in, now one of them, 2 of them probably going to transfer because that's just the nature of the beast, need to be very much ready to step in with Devon Keys, Charles Ross, and that crew next year. And that's part of the discussion in program building, or else you're going to have to jump right back in the portal and fill needs. But you bring in 5 freshmen, you feel like you ought to be able to cultivate 2 or 3 of them that are very, very good players. That's down the road. But for this year, for right now, for what LSU's got to go play Clemson, the 2025 linebacking core, I like it. I think it's very, very good in Blake Baker's room at this point. So that's another look at your in-depth chart. If you'd like to read some more in-depth numbers on it, you can go check it out at louisianasports.net. That series is completely free. If you don't know about this shortcut, now we're getting into football. There's a lot of content up there. There's going to be press conferences, practice reports, columns, all kinds of things. Go to louisianasports.net, and there's a teams tab at the top. If you click teams and then click LSU, all the LSU content will show up right there. All the baseball, all the basketball, all the football, all the recruiting. Just click the LSU tab and check it out. It's all free. So if you'd like your keep up to date on the LSU ongoings, please please do so over at louisianasports.net. We come back. We'll transition back to the Saints. Kellen Moore was at the mic. We'll talk about that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. I was standing in the sun today. It wasn't a ton of fun. But if you want to purchase a vehicle and you want to learn about all the bells and whistles of the vehicle and you want one of the brand ambassadors to go through all of that with you, it's, again, not a lot of fun to stand there on a blacktop in July or August next week and go through all that as you're drenched in sweat. So Genesis takes care of that. They've got a climate-controlled room that they pull the car up into. It's air-conditioned, so you can walk around the outside of the car, leave the doors open, and you won't cook as you're learning about the features of your new vehicle. Maybe it's the GX80. Maybe it's the Sport. But either way, you're not going to be sweating bullets while you go through it. It's that kind of a attention to detail that separates Genesis from a lot of brands of vehicles. I say it all the time. It's a luxury vehicle. And when I say luxury vehicle, going, well, I can't afford that. Just look, GenesisBatonRouge.com. Don't price yourself out. Go check it out. Get behind the wheel of a Genesis. You'll see the difference. Every single model in the line is an IHA top safety pick. That means among the safest cars on the road. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Find them online. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
It's been a fast-moving show. It's been a fast-moving day. I feel like I've been awake for like 10 minutes, and I got up fairly early this morning to get some things done, do some running, get a story written before we went out to practice, and then hustle back over here to get the show started. And then all of a sudden I look up and the show's just about over. We got 20 minutes left. We got a lot to do in the last 20 minutes. We'll get to take it or leave it coming up at the end of the show. But Kellen Moore was at the podium talking about the New Orleans Saints and what they've gotten accomplished here early on in practice. And I want to spend some time talking about the secondary. We did a little bit of that with Ross Jackson at the top of the hour, but we spent more time certainly on quarterbacks and then towards the fronts when they put the pads on. And I want to talk a little bit about the secondary because you know this. When Dennis Allen was with the Saints, whether it was defensive coordinator or head coach, they did an exceptional job of identifying young DBs, drafting them, bringing them in, developing them, and they got great defensive back play. It started with Lattimore, obviously, but you could even go to a Debo who was really good. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played exceptionally well. They developed some really good safeties. Marcus Williams was a really good player. They got good young defensive back play when Dennis Allen was there because that was kind of his position, and he did a great job of cultivating that. He did a lot of things really, really poorly. He did that really well. And so now you don't have that to kind of lean on, even though he did draft some of these guys. And the first guy I want to talk about is Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is a guy that Dennis Allen did identify and bring him in. And Kellen Moore spoke to Kool-Aid's camp as we've gotten to about a week and a half.
This has been a big-time camp for Kool-Aid. He's played phenomenal. His confidence every single day, he's just making a ton of plays, and you can just see his ability to transition in the coverage game is really, really good.
Nick Saban liked McKinstry a lot, and I realize he's not going to get on draft coverage and trash a guy that he recruited and developed. And so I will take it with a touch of salt there, but I think that Nick, generally speaking, is telling the truth in a lot of the things he does on there. He did admit that he's going to pick Alabama more often than not because he's not going to turn his back on the players that he may have signed at some point. And I do get all that stuff. He's not under a mandate here to be completely truthful all the time when there are relationships involved. I understand. But I think he probably does think Kool-Aid McKinstry is a pretty damn good player. And we saw a little bit of it last year, but we also saw him get beat a little bit last year when he was thrust into action when the Saints got significantly hurt at the defensive back spot. But Kellen Moore spoke about Kool-Aid and the impression that Kellen Moore had once he took the job.
Certainly felt like he was going to be, like we've always talked about, that second year big jump. Sometimes that first year, obviously for him, dealing with some injuries, slows you down a little bit in that first year. This was going to be a second year jump. We felt really confident that was going to be. When I was in Philly, we thought really, really highly of him. And, certainly Brandon did, during the draft process the year before as well when he was in San Francisco. So we felt like, we were going to create a really, really good opportunity there for him.
It's that reminds me a little bit, to bring it back to Baton Rouge from New Orleans, of Jay Johnson talking about guys he noticed in recruiting, and now they're playing against him even though he's didn't land them. And you're talking about Staley and Kellen Moore, who saw Kool-Aid McKinstry as kind of a prospect at one point, and then all of a sudden ends up in New Orleans, and now they've got a chance to coach him. And you really, really hope that Kool-Aid McKinstry becomes an excellent player out wide, and you hope that Alontae Taylor becomes an excellent player out wide, because if you can get some of these young draft picks to be for certain hits, you can start to not worry about plugging that hole. The Saints have so many holes on this roster. You've got to find some plugs, and these are your short-term plugs at corner that you hope become long-term plugs. Quincy Riley is a guy that the Saints drafted this year, and you heard Ross Jackson talking about him 30 minutes ago on the show and how he's a guy that makes a lot of plays on the ball. He did that at Louisville, and he's now doing that in camp. And Kellen Moore talked about what he's seen from the rookie DB early on.
Yeah, he finds the ball and he attacks the football. I think that's one thing that we saw on film coming into the draft process. He's a ball guy. That's what you need on the back end. Mistakes are going to happen, but when you create turnovers, those impact games.
That is 100% true. There is such a difference between the guy who is physical with long arms, who can run and flip his hips, to the guy who can just go play the ball. His eyes tend to find the ball. He's great getting his head around and identifying things. He can read body language on receivers, and then has the ability, which some DBs don't, to actually catch it, which is a pretty big deal. And Riley did a ton of that in college. And if you can harness that and then bring it to the next level, those are game-changing plays. I love pass breakups on defense. Trust me. Great. Interceptions, preferable. And Quincy Riley does that. And we've seen it now multiple times in Saints camp. And you talk to Sharif on Tuesdays, talk to Luke on Thursdays, and we had Ross Jackson on today talking about, hey, like, this guy is making these plays almost daily. And you start to feel like he's making an impression on Saints camp. And one of those interceptions came off of Spencer Rattler, and Kellen Moore talked about what he saw from the second-year quarterback throwing the ball and then the rookie cornerback making a play on it.
It'll be awesome one to watch on film and just have those conversations with the players just to make sure we're good. I thought it was a good, initially there was certainly we gave ourselves a chance. It was a good ball. Unfortunately, I think Quincy made a phenomenal play going and attacking the football, similar to Julian a couple days ago when he was in here attacking the football. I think our DBs are doing a great job of locating the football, and we got cleaned up on the offense side to see it and give ourselves a chance. It's
funny because this time of year, whether we're covering LSU, we're covering the Saints, we're talking about big plays. And when you see a big play, it's like, oh, that's awesome that X did that. And then you also have to flip it on his head and go, well, who screwed up? Like, who allowed that to happen? And what you really want is for it to be a great play all around. If Rattler makes a good read and puts the ball in a place where his receiver can go get it, and the DB just does a better job, well, that's ideal. You don't want Rattler just making an absolute miss of a ball, missing his window by 3 feet and having an easy interception because the ball's 2 steps behind the receiver, and you don't want to just miss a safety coming over or a linebacker that's dropping into coverage that you don't see and put it right in their face mask. If you're going to have the ball turned over by the quarterbacks, you'd like it to be, okay, a committed read, guy that's down the field, you make the throw, and if the DB goes and makes a heck of a play, as Kellen Moore termed it, take his words, not mine, well, then you've accomplished what you were looking for there on that play. You want the defense to make some plays, and if the offense isn't just completely screwing up in the process, that's a good thing. And so it's good to hear the Kool-Aid's off to a good start. Quincy Riley's off to a good start. You feel like you've got some young pieces there that you can work with, but they've got to develop. And this is the time for development right now when you're early on in training camp. So there's a look at some New Orleans Saints in the secondary. It was a stalwart position for the entirety of Dennis Allen's run in New Orleans. Now he's not here as a security blanket. What can the black and gold do to restock those shelves and to become one of the better secondaries in the conference? Once again, those two guys can be a big help. We'll see moving forward. If you're looking for Saints coverage, Locked on Saints with Ross Jackson, awesome, but certainly LouisianaSports.net. And then my stuff, Hunt on Saints on YouTube, is fantastic. And we appreciate you all for checking it out and subscribing to it. Get your Saints feed right there every single day on your homepage. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. We'll come back and close it out coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
.1045 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust want to make things a little easier on your budget by making your groceries for an entire year. And even if you don't win the grand prize, we'll also be awarding second chance prizes of $250 gift cards to High Neighbor Supermarkets. It's the free groceries for a year sweepstakes powered by Citizens Bank and Trust. High Neighbor and 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. Register now at 1045ESPN.com.
It's funny how when things happen in the course of a year that you feel like you hit a check mark and you kind of move into another phase. And like as I walked into the practice facility today, it just immediately like
we're in that phase.
I got fall vibes. It's not even it's July. Which
Still
is
110
very
degrees.
Much not the fall. Like July is not the fall, not even close to the fall. Our fall is like late November. So we're not even close to that. And I know how obscenely hot the first home football game is. But there's just a change in like the energy when I hear this all the time with the Chicago folks. Even though opening day at Wrigley in April is 39 degrees every year, they feel like summer's like off in the distance they can touch when they get to opening day. And I guess when you get to football practice and you hear the whistles and the pads popping eventually, which we'll get to later this week. It kind of changes your perspective from like, okay, school's out, everyone's at the beach, no rules. So like, hey, we're about to get a little bit more structure in our lives here. And it was good to get out to the Ponderosa today. If you're just knocking off of work or just jumping in the car and missed our show and you're just checking in, I got a practice report fully up at LouisianaSports.net. It's got all your information there, and I spent the first 30 minutes of the show today talking about LSU football practice. So if you want to hear about the opener, and there were some interesting things. Like I feel like I'm pretty candid with my thoughts on football practice reports. Like I'm just not here to make grand sweeping generalizations based on one interception this guy threw or one missed block that guy had or one drop pass on an in route that this guy had. Like it's easy to do. You catch the one that's on they put on Twitter that, oh my God, did you see that one-handed catch? This guy's gonna be awesome. And like I'm not there, but I did think that there were some things today that you saw that were interesting from a depth chart perspective, and then it looks like LSU's pretty healthy. So I'm excited to get back out there tomorrow again, kind of write up a new report and see what may change. Hopefully Nick Anderson's available tomorrow, and we're off and running with LSU football. So it's not as if we're in the content doldrums. I do realize that it can take a long time for the month of August to churn through. Can be 4 long weeks if you let it be 4 long weeks, but different vibe today as we went out and checked out some LSU football practice. So good deal. Let's see some take it or leave it now.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Presented to you by Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer, crafted by America's oldest brewery. Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Take it or leave it, presented by Flight by Yingling. Yingling, America's oldest brewery, still family owned and operated up there in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. The Yingling family is still very, very much involved in all the ongoings, and right now the newest ongoing is Flight. I got the slim can right here in studio, 2.6 carbs, 95 calories, but still has that delicious beer flavor. So if you're looking for a light beer, you're headed to the lake this weekend, you're going to be at the pool, or you just want something to cut after you cut the grass and it's 1,000 degrees, Flight by Yingling needs to be your summer beer. It is the next generation of light beer.
All righty, first one here. This was interesting. Titans number 1 pick and quarterback Cam Ward has had some press conferences after they have also started their camp. And after 2 days, Ward has thrown 4 interceptions. And when asked about the offense struggling so bad, he said, quote, "I just think we're very mid right now. At the end of the day, it all starts with me. Calling your offense mid, take it or leave it."
I'm going to leave it a week into camp. I mean, we threw a couple of picks in a practice session. I'm not going to get too fired up about that. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
This is just a whole new world for him. So I get it, mid, whatever. I'm not really into all that jazz, but it is what it is. They're not going to be great this year because they got a rookie quarterback. So here we go.
All right, next one. This came out a few days ago, but Luka Doncic, some photos of him apparently really working out really hard. He was on the cover of Men's Health magazine.
I heard that.
He's looks like he's on a bit of a PR tour here to show people that he is actually trying to look like a basketball player. But a new look Luka, take it or leave it.
I'll take it. If he's good when he's not trying, this should be one hell of a deal.
Yeah, that's true.
Because look, it's everyone kind of acknowledges that the Mavericks probably stepped out of bounds here. That's almost a consensus.
Yeah.
But if this was the kick in the seat that Luka needed, maybe that's even worse news for the NBA. I don't know what the Lakers roster is going to look like, and obviously they weren't great last year with Luka and LeBron, but he's very good. And if he is more motivated than he was, he'll probably be better.
All right, next one here. The MLB trade deadline is tomorrow, Hunt.
We're in 26 hours.
The Cubs will trade for a pitcher. Take it or leave it.
Take it. They will trade for multiple pitchers. It's just a question of who those pitchers are and what they have to give up in return. I've already kind of set my sights on the prospects that I'm going to have to part with. I think Owen Casey is potential there.
Yep.
But nobody cares about that. I just want to see what the Cubs can do. If they can get Mackenzie Gore, that's awesome. It sounds like James Hauser from the White Sox is probably more likely. But yes, they will certainly trade for pitching. Adrian Hauser, yes. What did I say? Shane?
James or Jason Hauser?
I don't know. Whatever.
Whatever.
I'll take him. It's always a fascinating time. I'm a little frustrated with the Cubs at this point because they played like absolute trash for 2 days in Milwaukee, which is disgraceful.
They are winning right now.
They are winning right now, but they played horrendously for 2 days. No, 2 days.
Yes.
And that makes me upset. And I was sitting on the couch last night watching the Cubs Gold Glove center fielder drop a pop-up and watching the Cubs not be able to make contact with the ball, the runner on third base and one out. And Bluey's on my TV, and there's a 3-year-old sitting there, and I can't really do the things that I would really like to do at that point. I would like to say some colorful words. I would like to maybe bash the pillow next to me and just be a complete grump and be a child about it. And I couldn't do that because I had a 3-year-old. So first of all, massive credit to me for being so grown up and mature. That's a huge credit to me.
What a professional.
Just acting like a true dad
Professional
there.
dad.
Amazing work by me. Secondly, I hated it. I didn't want to do it, and I sent a group text, or maybe it was a tweet that was out where it had the guy with like the blood coming out of his eyes and then the little happy face right in front of him. Put on the happy face. I don't think the Myers man knew that his dad was just absolutely dying with every pitch of this. I turned the game off. When PCA dropped the fly ball, I turned it off. I can't watch this. I'm watching Blue.
It's a bad sign whenever Andrew Vaughn looks like Mark McGwire and William Contreras is hitting tanks and he's got 4 home runs on the season.
Kyle Tucker just hit a 2-run double, so it's 8-3. I feel good about that.
That's good.
And I wish Myers was here to see me smile because that's a more appropriate. More appropriate.
Only problem is Shota is only going one more inning and the bullpen has not been very good since All-Star break.
But Palencia is ready to go.
He is, but there's still 3 more innings before we get there.
But we got a 5-run lead, so I feel good about that.
Yeah.
If the Cubs lose this game, I'm going to be in a bad mood.
It's going to be a real problem.
I don't want to go play basketball outside if the Cubs lose this. It choked this game away.
So he's on
basketball right now.
He's on basketball now.
He's shooting hoops.
Okay.
Not playing much baseball and more on basketball.
No more BP for you.
But he got in some trouble because he's trying to play basketball in the house.
Oh, yeah, that's
And then
not
we
good.
said, don't do that again. And then he just took another
Did it again.
Did another
Just why?
So
Why not?
He had to go
He's got to get those jumpers up, huh?
I was in timeout. Guy needs to play more baseball. Basketball probably not in his future. We'll see. All right, that's it for a Wednesday. Practice report at LouisianaSports.net or on demand, Hunt Palmer Show. Matt's going to drive you home. We're back tomorrow. Another LSU practice report. Looking forward to it. Have a great and safe Wednesday evening. Back tomorrow with the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.